Welcome to Larry the Alchemist, and welcome to another special midweek Sabbath Sunday. It's been a very eventful last week in the Black Sabbath world. We had the Back to the Beginning performance on Saturday. We did a video right as soon as that concert ended. Darin and I jumped on and gave you our raw, emotional take on what the day's events, and we thought it would be fun to do kind of an awards ceremony. Let's call this an award ceremony for some of the best of Back to the Beginning. So we're keeping it positive here. We're going to give you what we feel were some of the best things that happened on that day, and there were a lot of great things that had happened on that day. So we got some different categories for you here. We're going to start with Darin, what was your most surprising cover, the most surprising Black Sabbath cover that was done that day?
Junior's Eyes by Guns N' Roses. That surprised me. The intro was It's All Right, and that was kind of a surprise, but Axel's done that before, and the piano was kind of an indication that he was going to do it again. But then they started jamming, and the jam sounded somewhat familiar, kind of cool, and I was wondering what it would turn into. And then as it went on a little bit, it turned into Junior's Eyes, and it sounded pretty cool. Axel's vocals weren't very good, but the band sounded good, and it was definitely a surprise. That was out of left field. I didn't see that come. So, yeah, for number one, most surprising cover was definitely Junior's Eyes for me.
Yeah, for me, it has to be that or what I'm going to go for my pick. I'm going to go with Johnny Blade when Metallica did that. And I picked Johnny Blade because I thought for sure, because Metallica has done Black Sabbath covers in the past. I saw them performing Hole in the Sky with Geezer at some like award ceremony. I believe, have a recording of them doing, is it Sabracadabra? Or
Yeah,
is it Sabracadabra? Right, which
yeah,
they did.
Sabracadabra and National Acrobat.
Yeah, so I
Uh,
thought that
yeah,
they're going to do something that they've already done a cover of. So when they launched into Johnny Blade, I was just like, "Oh my gosh, are you kidding?" Like they're
yeah,
and to pick that song, I mean, hats off to them for going deep. And Guns N' Roses the same way. I mean, and Guns N' Roses was on before Metallica, so I went into this thinking nobody's going to play any deep cuts. You know, maybe the deepest thing we'll get might be, I don't know, something off of like Master of Reality or something off of Paranoid. Maybe somebody does The Wizard or something. I
right.
thought like that's about as deep as it's gonna get. So when Guns N' Roses started, when I heard that bass line, I almost didn't even register it at first. I was like,
Yeah.
what is this? This is kind of cool. And I was like, wait a minute, this is Junior's Eyes. So it could have gone either way. Junior's Eyes was certainly a shock, but once Guns N' Roses was done, I had did not expect. I didn't expect to be surprised by Metallica like that, and them doing Johnny Blade. They obviously sat down and really worked it out too, because it came across really really nice. So
Yeah, without keyboards too.
yeah,
What was cool about the GNR set was that the Sabbath songs they did were from Technical Ecstasy and Never Say Die.
yeah.
They didn't hit any of the usual suspects. They went the two albums that people were always very critical of. They went for it, and I
Yeah,
thought it was
and they
pretty
even
cool.
played Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. So
Yeah, so play Sabbath.
they
Yeah,
did, I mean, they had a 30-minute set, so they had a little bit of a longer set than some of the earlier bands, but I respect the fact that they could have easily, same thing with Metallica, have just said, okay, we'll do one Sabbath cover just to pay our respects, and then we'll do the rest as our stuff, but they took a big chunk of their set and dedicated it to Black Sabbath, which I thought was awesome. All right, so what do you
yeah.
think was the best cover performance? Just the best overall Black Sabbath cover performance?
Well, I had to think about this one a little bit. I'm going to mention Rival Sons' version of Electric Funeral because I really liked it. I like Rival Sons. I saw them in 2016, I think it was when they opened up for Sabbath, and I hadn't heard of them before. I thought it was strange that this band called Rival Sons that I'd never heard of were had the coveted opening slot for Sabbath on the End tour. Um, they impressed me. They're obviously a good band, good musicians, great singer, classic sounding, heavy rock, heavy blues rock. Not a lot of bands these days doing that anymore, and they're very good at it. And when they did Electric Funeral, I thought that was pretty much on point. Drums were right on, dead on. It followed the format perfectly. Vocals were a little, I guess you could say they're a little bit of the weak link in that performance, but when it progressed a little bit further, he came into it a lot better. Um, so I think overall their performance of Electric Funeral was really really good. But I'm going to go with Mastodon's version of Supernaut as the best because I really like the drum break, and I thought it also stayed pretty faithful to the original version. The drummer, I don't know what his name is, he sang. It doesn't sound like Ozzy, but he kind of had the same, he was in the same area code, so to speak. So it sounded good. The format was pretty much the same. It was a faithful cover, faithful rendition. But when it went into the middle part interlude, then you had Danny Carey come out, a couple other
Yeah. Yeah,
drummers, and
that
maybe
was
it
really
went on a
cool.
little bit. Maybe it might have went on a little too long, but it was still pretty cool. So I appreciate that. It was between them or Rival Sons, but in the end I went with Supernaut because I think it was just a little bit better than the Rival Sons version of Electric Funeral.
I came in after Mastodon's performance, started watching the stream, after they had performed. So I went back and watched it on YouTube. And the only thing that was disappointing wasn't his vocal mic like not on for like the first part of the song, or
That,
was,
yeah,
yeah, so that
maybe a
was
couple
kind of
seconds or
disappointing.
something.
What's that?
Yeah, there was like a little bit of a tech. Maybe the first couple seconds or something, but um,
No, I thought it was like
you
a
got to
whole
kind of
verse. Maybe it was just the YouTube stream that I was watching because I thought they were doing an instrumental. I thought, oh wow, they're doing an instrumental version of this. And it wasn't until like the second verse that I noticed that the drummer was singing and eventually, his voice got pulled up. But yeah, that was really cool. And the drum breakdown thing in the middle, that was super cool. But I had somebody else on my list here, but I'm going to change this, and I'm going to go with just because I just enjoyed it. I liked when Jake came out and Lizzie Hale sang "The Ultimate Sin." I thought that that was pretty cool. Not that "The Ultimate Sin" is a deep cut, but it is slightly. You know what I mean? To come out and start with that, they could have picked. I mean, I guess Jake's there, so obviously you're going to do something with Jake, and they already did "Shot in the Dark," but they could have done. Well, they eventually did Bark at the Moon, I guess, with Tobias, but I don't know. I just thought it was cool. I liked her energy in it. I thought I just thought it came across really cool, and it was early in the. That was kind of when I first clicked on to the stream. A little bit before that, the supergroup thing, and when we were talking about this a while back, when I heard that there was going to be a supergroup situation, I was expecting it to not really work very well, but I think it came out really cool. And I was like, wow,
yeah.
okay, this is a really cool idea. Like, was it David Ellefson playing bass, I think, on that one too?
Yeah, it was David Ellefson.
Who was on drums? Do you remember?
I'm trying to think of that.
Chad Smith? Was it Chad Smith?
Yeah, may have been kind of drawing a blank. It was definitely David Ellefson for that portion of the first supergroup. Oh no, I think it was Mike Borden. Was it Mike Borden?
Yeah, yeah, you're right. It was Mike Borden.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it
yeah,
was Mike Borden, David Ellefson, Nuno Betancourt, who we'll get to later. I will get to later. Lizzie Hale and Jake.
yeah.
And then
Okay,
but then
go
the
ahead.
Eric Draymond guy took over for Lizzie Hale. Is that his name? Eric Draymond? I know it's Draymond. I don't remember.
Yeah, I
I don't
don't know
know.
what his first name is either.
Yeah, he
Okay,
took
who
over
do
for
you
Lizzie.
think did the best, like reinterpreted a Black Sabbath song, kind of twisted it around and made it their, maybe put their own stamp on it? I think some people approached it in two different ways. Some people tried to stay right to the original, and other people tried to kind of put their own mark on it. So for you, who do you think did the best with kind of interpreting the Black Sabbath, reinterpreting it in their own way?
Again, I think there's a couple that made it their own. I think Metallica took a little bit of liberty with Johnny Blade, and I think they kind of had to because they didn't use there was no keyboards, so they made it a guitar-driven song. So there was a little
Yeah.
bit of interpretation involved with that, but it was still very recognizable. And other than that, it was pretty faithful. I'd have to say probably Slayer. I didn't see them doing. I honestly expected them to do Hand of Doom because they've done that before, and so I was surprised when Tool came out before Slayer, and Tool did Hand of Doom. So I figured, well, that takes Hand of Doom off the table for Slayer. Slayer did Wicked World, one of my favorite Sabbath songs. Um, and it's a little, I wouldn't have thought that that would be the one that Slayer would pick, but they did it pretty well. They Slayerized it, and then it was a success because it was kind of unexpected, and it was cool that they picked that. You know, I think the intent was to try to go a little deep with their pick, and I guess it kind of was. So I would say that they interpreted it pretty well. I would say that's my favorite interpretation of a Sabbath song was Slayer's "Wicked World."
Yeah, for me, it was definitely Youngblood. I got to be honest, I had no idea who he was. And when he came walking out on stage, I was like, oh boy, here's some like young, he looked like an emo kid or something. We're going to get some sort of screamo thing or such. I was just thinking, like, okay, this is not going to be good. And then when changes started, I thought, uh-oh, this is really going to be corny and not very good. But first of all, I was impressed with his voice. I was like, wow, this he really sounds good. And when the band kicked in, like in this sort of the second half of the song, and the band kicked in with the big chords and everything, it sent a shiver up my spine. I was like, wow, this is
Yeah,
really, really cool. And the way he had the crowd singing along with it, I mean, it was almost maybe we should have had like a Freddie Mercury award, like the way Freddie Mercury ran away with, kind of stole the show at Live Aid. He really came out and just really got the crowd into it. Just that sing along was awesome. He sort of interpreted the song in his own way, put his own spin on it and everything. And I loved the attitude of it. I thought it was super, super cool. Uh, Fred Durst, his version, unfortunately, Fred Durst's version came after the Youngblood version,
yeah,
so it seemed kind of tame compared
yeah.
to, what Youngblood did with that. And I just love the way, and it took me by surprise too. All of a sudden, when the band kicked in and it was just, I'm going, I was just like, wow, this is really, really, that's the moment because he came kind of early in the day. That's the real moment where I was like, oh, okay, yeah, this is really something special here. These bands, you could tell that there were some people that really, they put some thought into this. And for somebody like him, I'm guessing that a lot of people that went to this show or that watched the show are probably skews towards people around our age. So they're
Yeah.
probably not familiar with this guy. And he was somebody that I just thought really came out and made a name for himself. And I saw a lot of people commenting, saying sort of the same thing. I had no idea who he was. I don't know if maybe he's really big over in England. I have no idea. He could be really big here for all I know. But yeah, I just loved what they did with that. I thought that was super, super cool. So that easily got my best reinterpretation of a Black Sabbath song. Okay, how about what was the best song? How would we say this? Original song from a band. So not a Sabbath cover, best performance, best song from a band's own catalog.
Yeah. Well, so mine is Slayer Angel of Death. I thought that they
Mm,
just tore
Yeah, the
that up.
scream in that was epic.
Yeah, that was pretty epic. I mean, I saw Slayer back in '85 when they were young. I have a whole story about that, which I won't go into, but seeing a young Slayer was pretty incredible, as was seeing a young Metallica in the early days of thrash. But watching them again this many years later, tearing into Angel of Death, it's like the inspiration's still there. Even though they broke up, but they've been playing occasionally here and there. It's not an official breakup, so to speak, or it doesn't seem to be. It's not a band that's slowed down. They don't sound tired. Gary Holt, it's no substitute really for no replacement for Jeff Hanneman, but he's doing a really good job. Gary Holt's a great player. But man, they just came in, just tore it up. And Tom scream, yeah, it was like, and then Paul Bostoff. I would have preferred that it be Dave Lombardo, but I love Paul Bostoff too, and he was wailing, real tight, energetic, muscular performance. Pitt was going crazy, energy level was high, and I think the festival really benefited from what they brought, what Slayer brought to to the table. So, and
Yeah,
Angel of Death just sounded killer. So Angel of Death's my favorite
yeah, can't
original.
argue with that. For me, I'm gonna go with Tool when they played 46 and 2. Uh, I This is such a hard situation for a band to come in. These bands are all used to playing through their own gear, their own sound techs, their own monitors, their own crew, long sound checks, dialing everything in. So to get up on stage with no sound check, to just come, the stage turns around, you come out and you're in front of 50,000 people and it's like, go. There's no easing into it. There's no picking that opening songs that helps the band get their monitors set or anything like that. And so hats off to everybody all day long that all these bands were able to get up and yeah, just do this. But for me, when Tool got up and did, Tool is already a band that, they're the type of band. It's very technical. The stuff that they do rhythmically, it's very complex. There's all this layers and dynamics in their songs. Their stuff is really, intense, right? Not something you would think you'd be able to pull off in this kind of environment. You would think it needs a real controlled environment for them to be able to pull this stuff off. So the fact that they got up there and played a song like that, there's this point where, what's the drummer's name? Dana Carey, right? The
Danny
drum.
Carey,
Yeah, he's
Danny
like,
Carey,
the
yeah,
riff is playing and he's doing all these like
yeah,
polyrhythms over the top, and it's just like,
yeah, yeah,
and there was a point in the song where the camera was panning and showing like everybody standing along the side of the stage, and I can just imagine like some of the bands that are, because Tool was kind of one of the earlier 30-minute bands, kind of thinking like, whoa, you know,
yeah,
we gotta like they're showing up here. You know what I mean? These guys, they're not, they could have played Sober, which is a real easy, straightforward. That would have been a much safer song to play. Instead, they play 46 and 2, which is this weird
yeah,
polyrhythmic, progressive King Crimson thing. And they get up there and they just absolutely flat out nail it, sounding like they're 9 months into their own tour or something like that with their own gear and everything. I just thought that was just so
yeah.
impressive that those guys just got up there and were able. You would think that song's probably buried somewhat deep in their set because they need to warm up to it, but they
Mm.
basically come out. I don't think it was the first song they played. I can't remember now, but it was definitely one of the early songs in their set. So for me, that was definitely the best performance of a band's own song. All right, who do you think was the out of the bands before Sabbath and Ozzy, who was the best vocalist?
Um, Steven Tyler, but he's disqualified because he didn't do a Black Sabbath song. He sounded great for his age. I don't know what he is. He's like 70, 75, something like that. Steven Tyler, yeah, props to Steven Tyler. I'm going to echo your sentiments about Youngblood. I think he sounded really, really good. And, I've said before that the current status of music is we've lost a lot of great people over the years. We've lost Ronnie James Dio, we've lost Freddie Mercury, countless others that are irreplaceable. But Youngblood kind of gives me hope that there is this new generation of talented performers to carry the torch, into the next however long. This is the next generation. Youngblood is probably the next generation's Freddie Mercury, um, and that's cool. So I was surprised, like you, I'd never heard of him. I had no idea who he was, but yeah, about a minute into it, I'm like, wow, this guy's very talented, good singer. Um, so he probably would get the best vocal performance from me. But I'm going to give special mention to Jay Buchanan from Rival Sons. I love his voice. I think he's a great singer. I think he's like Youngblood. He's like the new generation of someone like a Paul Rogers or a Glenn Hughes.
Mm,
So yeah, it was cool to hear Youngblood and Rival Sons and know that well there is hope for the future. So, but
yeah.
of those three, I would say Youngblood, my favorite vocal performance.
I am going to go with Steven Tyler. When we did our after show review, and I mean, I stand by this. I don't like Walk This Way. I think he should have done a Black Sabbath cover, but there's no doubting that the guy came out and just like immediately took control of the stage and kind of showed like why he's a legend.
Yeah,
He came out, he was moving around, his voice was really together when they did Train Kept a Rolling. It was really, he I mean, how old is Steven Tyler? He's got to be what, 75, 80, at
yeah, it's a,
least.
I
Uh
think 75, 76. He's probably a little younger than the guys in Sabbath, but I'm going to
yeah.
say he's probably about 75.
Yeah, so he just came out and he just sounded great. And I can't honestly say that I've followed Aerosmith in the last 20 or 30 years, but so I had no idea what the status of his voice might be, but I thought he sounded fantastic. Again, didn't really, walk this way. I could have lived without that. Whole Lot of Love was cool though, and Train Kept a Rolling was fun. So okay, so
He's 77 years old.
wow, okay.
77.
Yeah, good for him, man.
Yeah,
Good for him.
yeah.
All right, do you think there was a MVP of the entire day? Who would be the most valuable player, you think?
Player, Nuno Betancourt. Is that how you say his last name?
Yeah.
Betancourt Nuno. Yeah, man. He was a workhorse and he played really, really great. Um, Handled the Randy Rhoads stuff. I think he backed up Jake. I think Jake had some difficulties in it. Nothing against Jake. I think he did a great job, but Jake has arthritis and in his wrists. I mean, I heard him interviewed. I think it was yesterday. I heard him being interviewed by Jim Florentine on Sirius, and great interview. I hope they re-air it. Jake came off like as such a cool, humble, really down to earth guy. I really enjoyed listening to him being interviewed. But in the course of the interview, he explained to Jim Florentine that he has basically no cartilage in his wrist. It's bone on
Wow.
bone. His wrists were wrapped up, had some
Yeah.
look like medical wrap or something. But he came out and he played really well. But I think that Nuno had to kind of back him up a little bit, and you could see him playing a solo. But then you're watching his fingers, and it's like, oh, but wait, no. And then camera goes over to Nuno, and you see that Nuno's playing the solo. And nothing against Jake. I mean, valiant effort considering his health, the arthritis, and everything else. But yeah, I think just from all the super bands and the other things that he was involved in, he did phenomenal job, phenomenal guitar player. I've never been much of an extreme fan, but I've heard him play on various things on YouTube and stuff like that, and he just always pretty much blew me away. And I think he was exceptional at the Back to the Beginning festival as well.
Yeah, I gotta say him too, just because he came across as a total pro. Not only was he supportive when he needed to be supportive, laying back when he needed to step forward more and sort of, I don't want to say cover for people, but help,
Yeah.
people. He was there for that. He was also singing background vocals. I
Mhm.
forget what's I heard him once or a couple times singing
Yeah, a lot of
harmonies,
times.
and really
Yeah.
like, being there. I mean, he's a total pro. I know he's been touring like with some like Latin American pop singer or something. I forget who, but he's just a pro. I think that's what he does now is he's goes out and he can tour with some rhythm and blues or a pop singer or something and play at stadiums in South America and stuff like that. I'm also going to give a shout out, I'm going to give this a dual award here to just the people who pulled this thing off. This many bands, the changeover now. I don't know if it was because I was watching the streaming. Maybe there were some extra long delays that they cut out of the streaming, but I mean, they just kept this thing moving. I don't think people Darin, both you and I have been on situations where there's multiple bands on the same stage, and you know how that can go so wrong so quick. All you need is one guitar player that can't figure out why his pedal board doesn't work. A microphone, the kick mic isn't working.
Right.
The bass player's tube amp won't turn on. I mean, this stuff. Usually these things get so, delayed and yeah, and there were a couple minor things. Like I remember when Alice in Chains was on, Jerry Cantrell's mic
Yeah.
wasn't quite up at one point, but
Yeah.
they fixed all that stuff pretty quick. I mean, there wasn't anything catastrophic, through the night where it was like, oh my God, like, the guitar
No.
player's guitar wasn't even on for the whole show. And when there was a little glitch in the stream, it was during Alice in Chains set when they did Fairies Wear Boots, I think it was during that where it dropped out for like about a minute. And the
Yeah.
streaming service, to their credit, there was a little box that was popping up every now and then in the top corner of the screen, and it just said, "We're aware of the audio problem. We're fixing it." And then they went and during one of the breaks, they did it earlier today, and they played that Alice in Chains song, doing Fairies Wear Boots again with without the audio dropout. So just another MVP to everybody who pulled this thing off. I mean, the people involved, organizing all these people, getting everybody there, getting everything to run smoothly like that. It's just really, really impressive. So, okay, what was
Yeah.
your favorite song from the Ozzy set? Or best moment or
Scott.
favorite song?
Okay. Well, so I'm going to do best moment, and that would be Mama, I'm Coming Home. I mean, really, really emotional. Not only the people in the audience, but Ozzy. I mean, with the way his voice cracked, the way
Yeah.
that you could see him crying, and the lyrics just had so much more significance during this performance. I mean, I loved I Don't Know because it was the first song of the set. It's symbolic because it was the first song on the first solo album, The Blizzard of Oz. It was the first song I heard from Blizzard of Oz. I bought the record back in 1980 or 81, and it was 81. Put the record on, put the needle in the beginning, and Blizzard of Oz came on. That was the first on the album, first one I heard. Likewise, in the set, it's the first song they played. So there's symbolism there. But Mama, I'm Coming Home just had the emotional weight, the emotional contact that I think was so critical and so important. It's such a big part of this festival that I have to say that was probably the most significant song and my favorite for sure. Mama, I'm Coming Home.
Yeah, definitely. I kind of had well, people had heard him sound checking on that, and I kind of knew that he was going to play that anyways. And yeah, and you heard his voice sort of breaking up, and my eyes were watering. I was wiping. You could have been a better friend to me. I mean, it was just it really hit you, and yeah, that was without a question sort of the highlight of Ozzy's set for me. Just the lyrics and
Yeah.
everything, and the situation, Ozzy sort of battling back to get up there on stage, dealing with his illness and everything like that. So,
Yeah. The line, "Here I come, but I ain't the same," and his
yeah,
voice cracked when he said it ain't the same. And it had so much symbolism because, well, first of all, the song was written by Lemmy. The lyrics were written by Lemmy. I mean, let's just get that out of the way. But it's like I've always said, when Ozzy sings a song, he makes it his own. He
yeah,
sings it, he just nails it. And it's always been Ozzy's song, even though Lemmy wrote the lyrics. But in this particular instance, that line just has it just resonated. Here I come, but I ain't the same. And he just kind of like started to well up, and it's like, whoa,
yeah,
that's really powerful. And
yeah,
I'd say that was probably the most important part. I mean, from the emotional standpoint, I think that was probably the most important part of the entire thing. Because I mean, it was really about, it was back to the beginning. It was back to the beginning of Black Sabbath, but it was also, to celebrate Ozzy because
yeah,
I mean, obviously Ozzy, I think we've all pretty much come to the realization that Ozzy's not going to be around for very much longer. I mean, I think it's safe to say that. And I think Ozzy realizes that. And I think everybody involved with Ozzy realizes that. And I think that particular song and especially that particular line was really significant. So yeah.
yeah. And I'm glad, they could have said, okay, we don't want to go there. Let's just keep it up tempo. Let's just keep it rock and roll and crazy and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'm glad they did it because I always thought that. We said this too, that at the end of our last episode, that we were glad that they did this now because so often you don't get a chance to play tribute to an artist till after they're gone. And
Right.
I've always felt like after Ozzy passed, that maybe there'd be some sort of concert to honor him. And Mama, I'm Coming Home would be maybe the last song that they play of the night, and it would be a very emotional thing. So it was I'm glad that they did that song there. It really made it, it felt like the whole day was sort of building up to that point. So that was really cool. Speaking of Lemmy, I saw a lot of people comment, and I totally agree with this. If Lemmy was still here with us, he definitely would have been here,
Oh, for sure.
at this concert, and you could just, picture just Motorhead just really doing something really cool and really fitting right into this. So. All right, but how about
Absolutely.
Black Sabbath then? What was your highlight of the Black Sabbath set?
I'm going to say NIB. I think by the time they got to NIB, they kind of got used to the monitors. I think that things were pretty tight. Ozzy sounded good. Everybody was playing the song the way you'd expect it to sound. Bill was doing a good job. He was playing the fills. I think it was Bill's probably Bill's best performance. And I love the song. I love NIB. I've always loved NIB, and that's probably my favorite
Yeah, I
on the
agree.
Sabbath.
In some ways, they maybe in hindsight they should have started with NIB because they did seem to lock into. I think War Pigs. You mentioned maybe it was the monitors, maybe it was just them trying to settle into the situation. But I loved Geezer's bass solo at the beginning of it, and they
Oh
just seemed to
yeah.
really sort of settle in when they got to NIB. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. There was a lot of energy to that. So that definitely got my best from the Sabbath performance. All right, there you go. There's our Back to the Beginning awards ceremony, the best of Back to the Beginning. Let us know what you think of our picks. Let us know what your picks would be for these categories that we went through. And yeah, we'll see you at the next Sabbath Sunday.